Need some help replacing the arbor bearings in your Powermatic 66 from the 80s or 90s? This video will help you get started, so stay tuned. The process starts with removing the tabletop from the cabinet. Powermatic uses 3 bolts to connect the tabletop to the cabinet, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. And there's a good technique for you to do it with one person. So then once the tabletop is off, I connected my bearing pullers to the arbor pulley on the shaft. And you can see here I'm just working its way off. A little penetrating oil and so forth helps because many times they haven't been removed in a long time. And I had to readjust in order to get it the rest of the way off. And of course, the further the pulley is removed from the shaft, the easier the process goes. And then once it's fully off, then we can get the arbor out of the casting. And to do that, usually I use a rawhide hammer, which is softer and thus does not mushroom the end of a shaft.
Okay, so that came apart pretty easy. I was using this bearing separator or puller kit from Harbor Freight. Comes with a bunch of different size parts and so forth. Works very well. And especially for table saw arbors, I've found that it works better getting in this little gap between the flange and where the bearing rests. Those 3-jaw pullers sometimes don't fit in there. So this seems to work well, especially in this situation.
So for the Powermatic 66s from the gold era, the 80s and 90s, here is the Arbor Assembly and what it looks like, at least the ones I've worked on thus far. So you have a bearing, a spacer, a spring washer, retaining clip, bearing, retaining clip. Okay, that's important to note, especially when removing everything, because if you don't realize there's a retaining clip on both sides of that first bearing, you're going to get stuck multiple times. So then as far as reassembly goes, you can see here in reverse order, I'm putting the bearing on first. I'm using a pipe that's sized to the inner diameter, inner race of the bearing. Then I've got the spacer, and the first retaining clip I actually found is easier to get on before you put that spacer on, but either way, the assembly works fine. And then I put the spring washer in there as well, second bearing, and then the second retaining clip. And then you've got everything on in the right order. Everything's ready to go back to its proper place in the casting. And so I've started the set screw there. A little bit of lubrication. This one especially had some gunk and grime and rust on the inside there. So I wanted to make sure we were good to go to get it back in. Again, I'm using a rawhide hammer, which does not mushroom the end of a shaft. And then once it gets started, then it goes in pretty easily. Okay, and then I will put the woodruff key into the shaft. And then we'll put the pulley on. And then again, light taps to get it started with a rawhide hammer is one technique. There'd be others as well. And then we just want to make sure that that pulley is aligned properly with the motor pulley. And so I got the belts all started and ready to go here. Pretty easy to walk on one by one. And then once they're on, then you can see if they're actually aligned properly or if they're, tilting one way or the other. And once they were all aligned properly, and I was happy with that, then I had to tighten down the set screw on the arbor pulley. To do that, I just loosened the belts and just pulled them off real quick. Locked down the set screw in the casting, obviously. That's what holds the arbor in place. That set screw needs to be locked down tight. Otherwise, your blade might drift a little bit over time. And there I'm tightening down the set screw on the pulley as well. And then it's time to put the tabletop back on. Here's a way to do it with one person, just to use a workbench or sawhorses or something to tilt it over on. And then we got 3 bolts, 1 on each corner in the front and 1 in the middle of the back. So we put those in, we hand tighten them, and then from there, we can align the blade to the miter slots. You can do that with a variety of techniques. I know there's more precise ways to do so using all sorts of jigs and tools, but I usually use a combination square, as you'll see here. And then once you have everything properly aligned, you can tighten down those 3 bolts that connect the cabinet to the tabletop, and you'll be ready to go. So hopefully this video gives you some information and helps you get started on replacing arbor bearings for your Powermatic 66 from the gold era. Because remember, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching. This is Daddy's Workshop of the Carolinas. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And if there's anything else I can do, let me know.